With that 70s show being a major success, naturally a spin-off series called That 80s Show seemed like an inevitable thing to happen. I've not seen That 70s Show all the way through, but whenever I have caught an episode of it here and there, I've liked it. It was just something I'd randomly watch because it happened to be on, as opposed to watching it from beginning to end. I did see a few episodes of That 80s Show when it aired back in 2002, and it was memorably bad enough for it to be one of the main inspirations for my 80s Dan show. Long before Glenn Howerton perfected the dentist system on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, he starred as Corey, a record shop employee who's just been dumped by his girlfriend and has a will they won't they plot line with the punk rock girl. Maybe the series will end with sex because of the implication. Get it? Get it? Because it's the 80s! That could be the punchline for every joke in this pilot. It took 10 minutes for a sarcastic, "I loved you on Miami Vice" remark, followed a little later by, "Guess what? I'm talking on a portable phone!" The laugh track kicks in after every line, as if the audience really is on coke. They laugh when Corey and his friends start singing along with Once in a Lifetime while they're driving in the car. Get it? It's the 80s! They laugh when Corey's sister is singing and dancing along with the Love is a Battlefield music video in a scene that has nothing to do with anything except it's the 80s! Characters play a drinking game in which you're supposed to take a shot whenever someone gets slapped on Dynasty. Great drinking game, guys. You might have a shot once an episode. A better drinking game would be if you're watching That 80s Show and you take a shot after a punchline could easily end with, "Get it? It's the 80s! Get it?" It's Valentine's Day and Corey's crazy-eyed manic ex-girlfriend has a crush on his sister. Woo! So the series has this kind of joke. Corey says, "I pity the fool," followed by a character going, "Mr. T from the A-Team," in case you didn't know. Also, in case you didn't know it was the 80s, we have lines like, "Did you know Miss Pac-Man got married?" Plus, "We went to go see Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo, and I was so lost 'cause I didn't see Breakin' 1. 'Cause it's the 80s! Although the ending of my copy said "coming up next according to Jim," so guess it could be worse. Not only does Corey's stalker ex-girlfriend want to bang his sister, but now his dad wants to bang her. Woo! There's not a lot to say about the characters in this, except I guess the best one is Margaret Smith as the snooty record shop owner. But a lot of the jokes there are just person comes in and says, "Do you have this album?" And she'll respond with, Tuesday, the punk rock chick does the same type of thing. There's a part where Corey's sister comes in and she goes, "Did you win a Cyndi Lauper look-alike contest?" Which is weird because the character didn't look like Cyndi Lauper, but you know, Cyndi Lauper is 80s! In case you missed it the first time, Cell Phone Guy is back to say, "My portable phone is ringing! Oh my god, you have one too?" Plus, Corey's sister starts playing on his synthesizer. More big laughs from the audience too, as the cast drives around singing "Come On Eileen" for no reason, 'cause that's an 80s song. Speaking of for no reason, a dude is working on a Rubik's Cube and goes, "This is so hard!" And then the girl next to him instantly solves it because it was visibly only 2 turns away from being completed. As for the plot of the episode, Corey wrote a song and it plays in the dance club, and honestly, it was pretty catchy, so there's that. Okay, so this episode opens with a guy having a fatal heart attack and dying on the dance floor from a cocaine overdose. Now, you'd think maybe this could supply some dark comedy, or maybe even be a satire of the very special episodes of the 80s. But no, just more dumb jokes. Two of the girls hug over it, and a guy comes in and goes, "Ooh, two girls hugging!" Speaking of, the sitcom version of Single White Female between Corey's ex and his sister is getting weirder and weirder, but the promo card did tell me that Halle Berry guest stars on an all-new Bernie Mac show coming up next, so at least it's not according to Jim. It took 6 episodes, but this one actually has one decent laugh. Jeff Pearson plays Corey's ladies' man dad, and he writes Corey's sister a check from a checkbook that he pulls out of his bathrobe, and then Eddie Shin says to him, "You keep a checkbook in your robe?" And Jeff Pearson responds with, "Sometimes you have to pay for things in the bedroom, son." That one got me, and he has a few other decent lines in this episode too, so maybe the writers figured that, hey, we might as well make at least one character humorous. Oh, but don't worry, it's still surrounded by bullshit lines like, "Can you close your legs? I can totally see your Hall and Oates!" The promo card also told me that tonight is the series premiere of The American Embassy. That show had fewer episodes than even that 80s show. The previous episode ended with crazy ex-girlfriend Sophia married to some random guy in another country. Oh, don't worry, that's never followed up on again. Instead, she throws a birthday party for Corey's sister Katie, but Katie is carried away by her naval officer boyfriend while Up Where We Belong is playing. Because Officer and a Gentleman was an 80s movie. Oh, and the boyfriend proposes to her and she says no. Plus, Corey and Tuesday, the punk rock girl, kiss. Oh, they sure are solving this will they, won't they, rather quickly. Crazy ex-girlfriend Sophia now works for Corey's dad, and businessy business. Plus, aerobics comes between Katie and Roger. If you don't know who these people are by name, don't worry, I'm gonna forget it rather quickly too. Corey and Tuesday are working out all the kinks in their make-out relationship, and one thing I'm noticing is how much better all the dance club scenes are shot. Every other scene just looks like the cheap sitcom that it is, but the dance club scenes suddenly go a handheld that gets a little grittier, and there's good music playing through most of them, so why don't all the scenes just take place there? In case you missed it the previous 1,000 times, a guy goes into the record shop, asks for something mainstream, and the manager goes, "I get it, record shop employees can be snobby." In this episode, Corey finds it hard to hook up with women because a registered sex offender moves into the neighborhood and he looks exactly like Corey, only fatter. Oh, sorry, that's from a much better Glenn Howerton series. This one has the line, "Wait, a commercial with information? Why, that could be called an informational commercial." Tiffany guest stars in this episode as a random person who gives Corey and Tuesday flyers for a punk club. And in case you didn't know it was Tiffany, when she leaves the two of them alone, Tuesday looks at Corey and says, "I think we're alone now." Wow, thank you, TV writers. Are you telling me that that actress was Tiffany all this time? There are several hard-hitting things that happen in this episode, such as Margaret Smith explaining the plot of Footloose. Although I'm most fascinated with the extra tall prop car that needed to be built to fit Tuesday's spiky hair. There's a lot of mentions of cousins here, which reminded me that apparently Corey is supposed to be a cousin of Eric Foreman from that 70s show. Don't worry, that fact is never mentioned in the series. They're too busy with jokes such as, "Hang on, I'm setting my swatches!" Now the sexual chemistry is between crazy ex Sophia and Corey's dad, so I guess they dropped the whole Sophia stalking the sister plotline. But it was so funny and totally not weird. And move over, Tiffany, because Pat Benatar guest stars in this episode, and I'm sure it physically pained the writers that they couldn't use the line, "Gee, Pat, you sure are a heartbreaker." I am running out of things to say about this series. Margaret has an annoying customer that she deals with through the whole episode, and Corey and Tuesday almost move in together, and then at the end they both talk about how they're in love with one another. But most importantly, Morgan Fairchild guest stars as a woman trying to take over Dad's company. That way they can totally spoof Falcon Crest. Every episode is bad for the same reasons, which is probably why I can't even remember which episodes I saw back in 2002. Now here's hoping that the show has a proper series finale. Of course Sophie is depressed. It's the final episode. I, on the other hand, am rejoicing. Actually, she's sad because she found out her sister is getting married. And that's the conclusion of that 80s show. The characters cheer up Sophia because she's sad she's not married. And Tuesday is finally okay with crashing over at Corey's because he lives in a much nicer place than hers. The end. This show actually could have been good. It's the 80s, it takes place in a record store, and with Glenn Howerton and Margaret Smith and Jeff Pearson and Kyler Lee, it's a good cast, but it's a terrible, terrible spin-off. Joey at least gave me a laugh every now and then. This one only got one audible laugh from me in 13 episodes. That 70s show worked because it focused on likable characters while using the 1970s as a backdrop. This show is just 80s jokes. That's it. And bad 80s jokes too. Don't forget, close your legs, I can see your Hall & Oates! Not to say the 80s can't be parodied, it's been done successful plenty of times, from Hot Tub Time Machine to the Gang Hits the Slopes episode of It's Always Sunny, which is by far and away the better Glenn Howerton 80s lampoon. The only thing that would possibly make this a curiosity is if you go into it thinking it's some horrible sitcom that Mac and Dennis made together because they got tired of making Lethal Weapon sequels. As it is, just watch that 70s show, or an actual good 80s sitcom, or Freaks and Geeks. This show is a Saturday morning sitcom but with sex jokes, but again, I hesitate to complain too much more, because after this, I have to watch season 3 of Fuller House.